Hello, my saplings. I'm Trini, and you may have noticed that this is not your regularly scheduled Raven. They are on break at the moment, but wanted to make sure you continue to get content. So instead, I get the chance to be your special guest for a few videos this month. On that note, I would like to apologize for the lack of a video last week. While Raven was on vacation, I had a family emergency and was not able to make the usually scheduled video. Today we will be reading A Lifetime of Love, Part 1, as a bonus to last month's Soulmate September series, where soulmates feel each other's emotions. This video will be in parts as it is a lengthy story, and editing the story as a whole was taking too long to release on time, given the previously stated circumstances. Still, I thank you for your patience, and I hope you enjoy. A Lifetime of Love. Logan has felt his soulmate's love nearly all his life. He just didn't realize it until that love turned into heartbreak. Why does Logan's soulmate feel so much? It was a near constant struggle for him, as he had to deal with strong waves of intense ups and downs. He would almost use the idiom extra to describe it. The whole ordeal was borderline debilitating Logan's ability to keep his focus. He could not see a reason that anyone needed to feel so strongly. Logan took a deep breath to try and calm a racing heart that was out of his control and pushed his coffee away with a frown. The menace needed to be stopped. How could he work like this? How could he attend to his patient? He felt the cardiac quickening still and groaned. If it did not slow soon, he was figuratively certain that someone would need to call a crash cart. Maybe literally certain. It was to be seen. "Hey, Doc," a cheery voice said to his left, just as he heard the telling clunk of a plastic tray hitting the table to reveal a face he recognized. Scrubs, curls, light hair, bracelet, alto, freckles, Nilla, smiles, soft. Friend. Patton. Nurse Patton, his mind reminded him as it instantly cycled through the immediate sensory details he most associated with his table-mate. Patton was a near constant source of smiles and warmth to those around him. He was a favorite among patients who would often come in even after their recovery to deliver tokens of appreciation and occasionally gifts that were more intimate. Logan could remember a particular nuisance who was overly forthcoming with their affections, to the point that Patton sometimes appeared uncomfortable. Sometimes Logan felt uncomfortable too, just seeing the displays. The ward nearly had to dispose of a ridiculous number of roses when the man thought he was being romantic with a display that engulfed their waiting room in flowers. It was a nuisance for the staff to deal with, and potentially endangered the lives of anyone who needed life-saving emergency services at that moment, or anyone who was simply allergic to roses. Thankfully, no one was harmed in the end. Instead, Patton showed his quiet brilliance when instead of tossing them all, he suggested divvying them up to the hospital rooms to cheer up patients. Many people expressed their gratitude for the gesture and were generally more open to medical suggestion of the hospital's professionals. Though Patton insisted he simply wanted to make people smile, Logan agreed that was probably the case. Despite all of the good it did, Logan was not the least bit sorry to see that particular suitor leave. "Doc, you okay?" the cheery voice asked, and Logan blinked. He had been swept up in his thoughts. "My demeanor and functioning is slightly less than satisfactory today," Logan replied. He didn't quite understand the strange way Patton quirked his lips into a half-smile, but Logan did understand that the small snort that Patton had made was somehow at his expense. "Feel like sharing with the class?" Patton asked, tilting his head to the side just so, the way he always did when he was really paying attention to what was just being said. I do not believe that sharing my turmoil during my afternoon lecture would be appropriate. Patton snorted again, and Logan found he didn't mind when his shoulders shook with near-silent giggles, even if it was at his expense. Even on the days when his soulmate bothered him with needless, intense emotions, Patton always seemed to assuage those pesky feelings and replace them somehow as a bubble of joy settled into his chest that Logan was certain was all his own. "I meant it as a turn of phrase, Doc," Patton said with a toothy smile that Logan understood from experience was a show of his amusement. "What's got you down?" Logan squinted at Patton, trying to decide how best to approach the topic. The media always portrayed soulmates as endlessly beautiful, wonderful things, and Logan just found the whole thing absurd. However, he was not at all certain how Patton felt about the subject. He was an inherently emotional being. It was part of what made him such an effective nurse, being able to connect and empathize with his patients. However, it was also his downfall as Logan watched every failure, every death affect Patton on a personal level. Logan has held his friend many of times, exhausted and sobbing during the night shifts as another patient died in his hands. The empathetic nurse always handled losing children the worst. Surely someone as emotionally driven as Patton would subscribe to the popular opinion of soulmates, would he not? Logan was uncertain. "I have found myself fatigued recently by my soulmate's emotional turmoil," Logan replied finally. Many would consider such an admission blasphemy. Even if he was unsure of Patton's feelings on the matter, he was certain to find out now. Additionally, he trusted Patton to understand his intentions. The nurse was perplexingly astute at understanding intentions. Patton's eyes were instantly blown wide as he sat up straight and pulled further away from Logan's immediate personal bubble. Maybe he would not understand after all. Logan felt a pang of something. He was not certain it was his own emotion, but the immediate disappointment running through his veins was palpable. It can't be that bad, can it?" Patton asked with a small laugh with twiddling fingers that for Patton signaled nervousness rather than the joy usually associated with laughter. "I do not believe there is anything inherently wrong with them experiencing emotions," Logan corrected, uncertain if emotions can really be considered bad. He prescribed more to the ideology that it was a person's actions that defined them, rather than their internal monologue. "It is just that I have found myself distracted by both the strength and range of emotions they have recently imparted onto me. It can be difficult to concentrate with the physical symptoms that some of the emotions cause." Patton hummed in reply as an audible agreement. "Tell me about it." Patton moved slightly closer again, back to his position from before, and placed his chin in his hand with a half-lidded gaze that meant he was considering the topic deeply. While he appreciated the thought Patton was putting into forming a response, Logan was more relieved that Patton had not abnegated their friendship the way he had initially feared. "Have you experienced anything similar with your soulmate?" Fear, no, hesitation, seemed to work its way into Patton's expression as he met Logan's eyes from underneath his lashes. The pair stared for several seconds, both doing their best to read the other. It was sometimes a struggle, Logan knew. He often found emotions difficult to understand, like a language he was inarticulate in. Reading Patton was admittedly easier than most. The two spent so much of their time together that Logan had learned to understand many of his emotional signals, what small gestures and certain tones meant. Logan would never admit it out loud, but his understanding of Patton's expressions was so prevalent that he had started internally matching other people's emotional reactions to his curly-haired friends. It honestly helped his navigation of the unfamiliar territory. Logan swore he could hear an ambulance siren alarming in his head when Patton looked away and murmured, "Sometimes they get angry," while clutching his chest just over his heart. At first, he was uncertain how he should respond. Logan found himself experiencing an irrational desire to build walls around Patton, to create a space for him that he could curate and fill with all of the things that brought his friend joy, to protect him from such ugly emotions, and particularly protect him from such an undeserving soulmate. Logan was certain that someone as patient and good as Patton deserved to feel nothing but emotions that were equally kind and soft as he was. Logan knew that such a feat was impossible, though. Patton would never realistically be happy in such a state. He loved the world, no matter how barbarous and unkind it could be. Patton strived to make it a more benevolent place, and his presence alone made his goal a continually successful one. Logan found himself reaching for Patton's hand unthinkingly, a mimicry of a gesture Logan had seen the curly-haired man use to console his patients. "Are you safe?" he asked in a low murmur. He was uncertain who Patton's soulmate was, or who they might be, but he had to be certain that his friend was in no danger. Logan was more than willing to act as a metaphorical shield to help him reach safety should the man require it. A literal one, too. Patton was giggling at his expense again. It was an unexpected, yet somehow favorable outcome of this conversation. Only when it was him, though. "Don't worry, it's nothing so dramatic. No danger on my end. I live alone. No partner or anything, not even a house cat," Patton admitted, and patted the hand that Logan offered him. It seemed to be some sort of consolation for his efforts. "I just worry about them sometimes, you know?" Well, no, he did not. He had not even considered applying concern to the disembodied entity that plagued him with unwarranted emotions. Instead, his immediate reaction had mainly been ire. Logan was diligent with his work, and often took on additional duties at the hospital while maintaining several personal projects. Logan's main focus had been on how his soulmate's emotions had interfered with his ability to effectively complete everything he intended. Perhaps that was the wrong perspective to take. Logan had not even contemplated why the person he was spiritually bound to was feeling the things they did before that point. Patton truly was remarkably astute in many ways that were out of Logan's reach. His friend always seemed to find a perspective on things he did not initially entertain. It was quite an admirable quality. A soft beeping noise interrupted Logan's thought process, as the pair both immediately checked their pagers. "Well, that's my cue, I guess," Patton said and cast his uneaten meal a longing gaze as he pushed himself up from his seat. Patton gently hip-bumped Logan's side affectionately before taking his tray to the disposal and dumping the various items into the most appropriate containers. That would not do. Logan and Patton's occupations were both difficult enough when they were working at their best. Patton did not need the strain of a missed meal impairing his professional ability and physical condition. Logan mentally added the task of procuring Patton a meal to his mental to-do list, something that could be consumed without inhibiting his duties. Perhaps a smoothie that could be kept at the nurse's station? Logan's eyes wandered to the nearest wall clock as he considered his options, but realized that he needed to be on his way. He barely had time to retrieve the annotated materials before the lecture he was meant to present in less than a quarter hour. He rose without hesitation and took long strides to quicken his pace as he headed toward his office. Thank you for listening. Once again, this was A Lifetime of Love Part 1 by me. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you have a wonderful day.